Okay, class. I'm sure you're all super ecstatic that I'm not there. But here is your notes for 4.2. The objective. Students will be able to apply the angle sum theorem and the exterior angle theorem. Okay, the angle sum theorem, this guy right here, triangle angle sum theorem. This is that the sum of the measures of the angles of a triangle is always 180. You've probably seen that before, but basically what that means is if you were to add this angle and this angle and this angle of any triangle, it will always add up to 180. It doesn't matter what the triangle looks like or what kind of triangle it is, it will always add up to 180. And some of you guys may remember I took a triangle and I ripped it into 3 parts and the angles all made a straight line. And that's because of this theorem. Okay, so let's apply this theorem. Example number 1 says find the measure of the 3 missing angles in the 2 triangles to the right. So this triangle and this triangle is the 2 triangles they're talking about. Well, look, I have a 41, a 46, and then this angle 1. I need to find angle 1. That's actually our variable. So if it's easier for you to just call that x, maybe call that y, call that z, you can do that. That's totally fine. All right, and let's look at this top one. Well, I have 2 angles. I have 41 and I have 46. And I don't know what x is, but I do know that those 3 angles, when I add those 3 up, they should all equal 180. So I have a pretty simple equation here that I'm going to solve. 41 plus 46 makes 87 plus x equals 180. Subtract 87 from both sides. And cross that off. We get 180 minus 87 is 93. So we get x equals 93. So let's put a little 93 in there. Now, a long time ago, it was way before Christmas break, we learned about something called vertical angles. Vertical angles are anytime we have this little x. And we learned that vertical angles are always congruent. So if x is 93, what does y have to be? Well, it has to be 93 as well. So we could put a little equals, say this is 93 as well. All right, if this angle is 93 and this angle is 24, how do I find that one? Well, I would say that 93 plus 24 plus that angle down there, we'll call it z, has to add up to 180. 93, 24, that adds up to 117, plus z equals 180. Subtract 117 from both sides, and we would get that z has to equal 63. And there we go. We got all the different parts, the missing angles of the triangle, based on this one theorem, that they all have to add up to 180. I want you guys to try the next practice problem on your own. I'm going to have the teacher pause the video and then I'll put the answers up shortly. So go ahead and pause the video now. Okay, I'm going to do this one a tad quicker because we've already done this once. We have 2 angles of a triangle again, 41 and 38. So I'm going to say 41 plus 38. And this time I'm going to call this A, call this B, call this C, just to make it a little bit easier. Remember, we can name angles with numbers like we did here, but these are not values. These are not the measurements of those angles. This is just their names. So if it makes it a little bit easier, change it to a letter. That's fine. So we got 41 plus 38 plus A has to equal 180. 41 and 38 is 79. 79 plus A equals 180. And subtract 79 from both sides, subtract 79, and we get A equals 101. Okay, if that's 101, then B is also 101 because they are vertical. Now, I know it doesn't look like 101. Oh, sorry, I forgot to put a little 1 there. I know it doesn't look like 101, but we don't care about how things look in geometry. We just care about what the numbers tell us. So while this angle looks acute, the math says it's 101, so we go with the math. Okay, let's go to this next one over here. Let me zoom in. I have 101, 31, and C. So let's do this one in I'll do it back in blue. 101 plus 31 plus C has to equal 180. 101 and 31 is 132 plus C equals 180. We'll subtract 132 from both sides. These guys cancel out. We're left with C equals 180 minus 32, which is 48. Yeah, 48. So we got C, we got B, and we got A. There we go. Hopefully that's what you got. Okay, for this next type of problem, it's called the third angle theorem. And what this is basically saying is saying if you know that two angles of a triangle are congruent, so you know these two are congruent and these two are congruent, congruent, put a little congruent symbol right here. So you know that two angles of one triangle, are congruent to two angles of another triangle, then the third angles have to be congruent. C and F have to be congruent. That's it. If we have two angles congruent, the third one has to be congruent. Well, let's look at this example problem. It says angle B is 55 and angle E is 55. So these B and E are both 55. We can write that in. And then it says A and D are both 25. So let me zoom in. 25 and 25. So those two are congruent. And then it says find C and F. Okay, well, since these two are congruent and these two are congruent, we know that C and F are going to be congruent. So let's just write that. Angle C is going to be congruent to angle F. Now that we know that they're congruent, let's solve for C or for F, and we'll really be solving for both of them. So I have 55 in one triangle, another 25, and then we could just call it X if we want, plus X equals 180. Well, 55 plus 25 adds up to 80. So 80 plus X equals 180. Subtract 80. Subtract 80. And we would get that X equals 100. That means that if X equals 100, both angle C and angle F equal 100 degrees. There we go. That's it. That's how we do that problem.